Hi there you guys, I hope you are well. So I know just what it's like to have a dream about writing books, have a dream about writing and still struggling so hard to do it. That was me for a good couple of years when I first wanted to start writing my first novel, and it took me a good while to figure out how to move forward with it. But I did, and I am also helping coaching clients to move forward with their book projects, so I thought it was time to make a video on this topic. So I know there are many of you out there who are thinking about writing a book, have that little idea, have that little dream in the back of your head, but you haven't taken that first step. So that's what I want to help you do in this video, to start taking first steps and writing that book. So writing a book is a huge project. There is no way around that. It is for most people a multiple-year project, especially if you include the editing process and trying to get it published and hopefully managing to get it published or self-publishing it. So yeah, there's just no way around that writing a book is a big thing, and that means it feels quite overwhelming to start writing a book. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of writing a book, just know that that's completely normal, especially if it's your first time at trying to write a book. So yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry, it's completely normal. So what I suggest you do as your first thing you do when you are saying, okay, I'm gonna write this book, is to do a brain dump. So since it's such a long project, big project, it can be difficult to decide that this specific day is gonna be the first day that I will start working on my book. Because why not just wait a week or wait 2 weeks? And especially if you have been thinking about this for a long time. So the longer the time passes, the harder it gets to just decide that, okay, this is the day I'm gonna start writing that book that I've been thinking about for I don't know how many years. So I would suggest getting out your planner, get your calendar and pick a date in that calendar when you can be undisturbed that day. Go to a cafe, or if you have your home to yourself, nobody else is gonna be home that day. Maybe you buy some food for yourself for that day. Maybe you buy a nice special brand of tea that you like, something that just makes it feel a little bit special. Maybe you buy yourself a notebook specifically for that day. Mark it in your calendar and be like, okay, this is the day when I'm gonna start. And that might make you nervous, but it might also help you to actually stick to that date and stick to, okay, we're actually gonna do this now. So on that day, the thing that I want you to do is to do a brain dump. So here I have a big notebook or drawing book or something that I used when I started working on my first novel. So I needed something to just get my ideas out, start sketching things, and so I bought this book just to start writing out some structure ideas. I started writing down character ideas, storylines, all the ideas that I had, and then I kept building on it as I was moving forward. So you can do it like this. You can buy something or get a big piece of paper and just start writing things down. Or you can have a notebook that you use for your book project, start writing in that, or just a plain old document. So I'm actually in the process of starting to write my second novel. So the first novel is still sort of in the works. I have written it, I have edited it many rounds. I've pitched it to publishers and I got a little bit of feedback from a publisher. I didn't get any acceptance letters, unfortunately. So I'm in the process that I need to do a quite big editing round with it, I think, because I need to change some big things that are gonna have a lot of effect on the story. So yeah, that is on one side, and I have a new project that I also want to work on. So that's what I did a couple of weeks ago. I sat down, I took my laptop with me to the local cafe and I sat down and just typed out everything that I've been thinking about this new book project that I have been building in my head for a couple of years, I would say, more or less. So yeah, that is the first step. Just get it out. And it might be vague, it might be concrete, it might be that there's something you're very clear on and everything else is fuzzy. Just whatever you have, try to get it down. And it might be that you fill just half a page with text, or it might be that you fill multiple pages with text. It doesn't really matter, you just have to start getting out something. So get your ideas out of your brain and onto paper. So yeah, that is the first step. When you have your brain dump, then it's time to start digging a little bit deeper. So at this stage, you might be clear on some things, but there are still gonna be a lot of blanks. And that is expected and that is okay. You just have to dig a little bit deeper. So yeah, it might be that you know a character that's gonna be in your book, but the story, the setting, everything else is vague. Or if you're writing nonfiction, it might be that you sort of know what you want to say with a book, or you sort of know the topic that you want to write about, but everything else is still fuzzy. And so what we need to do is start digging. I think of an idea, whether it's a book idea or if it's any other type of creative project idea, sort of like the tip of an iceberg, or like we have a tiny little plant that is sprouting out of the earth, but it has a whole network of roots beneath, and we need all of those roots to have the full idea and to understand that idea. And when I work with coaching clients, I always see that there is so much to that idea that they still have inside of them, but they can't see yet. So they need to keep digging into that idea and to keep asking that idea what it wants to be. So exactly how you do this process depends on what kind of writer you are. So some writers in the writing community, they are called pantsers. They want to write off the seat of their pants and discover the story, discover the book through writing it. And that is one way to do it, and that is completely unacceptable way to do it. And if you do it that way, then you will write and you will ask all of these questions, dig deeper as you're writing. You're seeing, okay, what has the story told me already that I know, and what does that mean for the story? The other way to do it is the plotter way. So that means you are planning out the story before you write it. And you can also fall somewhere in between. And there is no right or wrong, it's just different methods. And I have been a pantser with my first novel, and now I'm more of a plotter when I have sort of learned how to plot as well. So, I want you to ask, what is this book about? What are the gaps? What are the blanks that you still have to fill? And what is this story about? And how do you want to tell that story? So even if you're writing nonfiction, there is some sort of story to your book. And if you're looking at nonfictions that you have read and enjoyed, there is some story to it. Whether it's a broad overarching story or that it's filled with many different little stories throughout. Usually the good nonfiction has a lot of story in it as well. And with fiction, of course, there's a whole big story. So look for the story, look for the message what do you want to say with the book? And with fiction, finding the message might be a bigger process. It might take writing the book to discover the message of that book. With nonfiction, it might be a little bit more central. So if you, for example, are writing a book about writing books, say, and maybe your message then to young writers is that everyone can write a book. So just think about these questions. Think about, what is the story? What are you trying to say with this book? What does this book want to be? And what gaps do you still have to fill? So even if we know things about our story, usually it has more to reveal to us. So for example, if you have that one character is kind, for example, you know that she's a very kind character, you can still keep asking that character, okay, what does that mean? How does that manifest in the things that you do? How does that affect her life choices? Where does that come from? Writing backstories for characters can be a great way to discover more about them, for example. So yeah, this digging can be a really fun part, but it can also feel like stumbling in the dark a little bit. So just keep digging and expect that this is a pretty messy process. Your book won't arrive to you in a neat little package with a bow, complete as you want it to look. The process of sort of fleshing out and making an idea work for a whole book takes time, and it comes in different strands and little bits here and there. Sort of like laying a puzzle where you don't really know the puzzle pieces yet, and you don't really know how things fit together, but you have to start trying and fitting things together and seeing what is missing to lay that puzzle that is your book. So just expect this to be a little bit messy, to keep going over writing the book. You're going to discover more and more and more about what this book wants to be as you're writing it as well. So yeah, just stay open and keep digging and exploring what this book really is about. So when you feel like you understand your book idea a little bit better, then it's time to actually start writing. It's time to set yourself by your desk or by your laptop and actually put fingers to the keyboard and start writing. And how long you wait to do this depends, of course, on whether you're a plotter or pantser. But even if you're a plotter, I would advise you to not wait too long to start writing, because you're never going to plot it out perfectly. You're never going to have the perfect plan for the book that is going to stick all the way through, and you'll never have to make any edits. You'll never change your mind. Things are going to come up as you're writing as well. You are going to discover things about your project, and you're going to discover things that you have planned that didn't quite work. So don't wait for perfect. Just try to make a start. And this can also be a little bit of a back and forth process. So you might write out the first 3 chapters, for example, and then go back to the drawing board and look at, okay, are things moving in the direction that I thought? Are things playing out as I thought they would and like I want them to do? Or am I discovering things about the story that I didn't know was there? And just, this can be a back and forth process. So you will discover things through writing as well. And as a writer, this will hopefully also be a fun part of the process. I know that writing can feel vulnerable, you can feel a lot of resistance around it, but writing is also fun. So try to enjoy the writing and try to just, get into that mindset of, we are doing the first draft, it's messy, it is not perfect, but it's fun to write. So when you've done your brain dump and you have dug a little bit deeper into your book idea and you've started to write, then you've actually done the first part that can be so difficult to get through. You have started working on your book. So that is the 3 things to do to start writing a book. And as you're doing this, try to invite in imperfection along for the ride, and try to invite in fear to come along for the ride. Because if you are holding on to perfection, and if you are trying to avoid everything that feels scary and challenging, then you are not going to be able to move forward with this book, I can promise you. So you need to be okay with this first draft to be messy. You need to be okay that it's not going to be perfect, that no book looks perfect at this stage. It's gonna look messy, and you're gonna see that it's not what you want it to be. It's not gonna be what you want it to be. But it's a process, and allow that process to be imperfect. and allow it to feel a bit scary. I think most people feel a little bit scared when writing a book, because you have those ideas, you have those dreams, and you want them to work out, and to start doing that, to start pursuing that feels scary. And that is just something also to embrace and allow it to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's okay that it does. It does for everyone, and you can get through it. You can be courageous, I assure you. And finally, to keep moving forward with this book project and keep writing this book, try to build yourself a nice little writing habit. So it might be that you dedicate a couple of hours every Sunday towards working on a book, or maybe you have half an hour before work that you can sit and write, or maybe you just try to dedicate some vacation time for it. Whatever suits your schedule is the one to go with. So yeah, just try to build a habit, because it's going to help you to keep moving forward consistently with the book. And it doesn't have to go fast. It's likely going to take you quite a while to write this book, and that's okay. Just try to find a habit that works within your life and your schedule, so that you have time to actually spend writing this book. And with habits, it's always going to be easier to get into the writing and to just have that time for yourself, and not just try to fit it in wherever is left in your calendar, because that often means that we don't have as much time as we would like to work on a book. So those were my tips for getting started with a book project. So I know that this is difficult. I know how hard it can be to dig deeper and understand your book idea. I know how hard it can be to get started with the writing process. So I also do one-to-one coaching, and I often work with creatives who have book ideas, book projects, whether they are just starting out or later stages, getting into the editing process, for example. So feel free to check out my coaching packages if you think one-to-one support might help you, and feel free to reach out to me as well if you have any questions. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a little like if you did, and if you're new here, hello and welcome. You can subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!